Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and today I'm going to teach you guys about the best amp in Warframe, why it's so good, which arcanes you should put on it, how to get it, and why it's actually worth prioritizing upgrading your amp from the Moat amp, the Sirocco, or whatever else you're running. So the best amp in Warframe is the 547, which translates to the Cantic Prism, the Fad Scaffold, and Certus Brace. You get the Cantic Prism and Certus Brace from Little Duck in Fortuna, and the Fad Scaffold from Onko in Cetus. So why do we pick up this amp? The reason that this amp is better than pretty much every other amp in Warframe is that it's the most versatile. The Cantic Prism fires a 3-round burst at a reasonably high fire rate. It's got a crit rate of 34% and a crit multiplier of 2.2 times. It has 10% status chance, which is low, but since it's a burst fire, it can actually proc void bubbles reasonably quickly. It also has great energy efficiency, and it takes ages to run out of amp energy whenever you're running it. The Fad Scaffold fires something that's a lot like Cedo's Glaive. It bounces all over the place and either hits multiple enemies or can get caught in one of those void bubbles that we mentioned to do massive damage to a single target. It also has a 34% crit rate and a slightly higher crit multiplier than the Cantic at 2.8 times. While it's far from ammo efficient, the number of enemies that it hits more than makes up for that fact. The Certus Brace pretty much does what it says in the tin, increasing your amp's crit chance by 20%. This increases the base crit rates on the Cantic and the Fad to 54% instead of 34%, so it allows them to crit much more consistently. So basically, this amp is extremely comfortable because it has great options for long range, short range, AoE, and single target damage. It can deal great sustained damage with the Cantic or great burst damage with the Fad. It's easy to use and forgiving. If you just want a one and done amp, this is by far the best choice. So why would we pick these parts over the other common ones? The Cantic Prism might not have the same raw damage per shot that the Raplak Prism does, but it's much less punishing to miss a shot because of the higher fire rate and burst fire. It might not have the DPS of the Clamora Prism, but it doesn't suffer from the same range and ammo efficiency issues. The Fad Scaffold has a lot of the same versatility. The Propa might do more damage, but it's just as likely to get your operator killed as it is to let you revive yourself because it barely travels and is very likely to just knock you over. The Straxon has great close range damage, but it's not nearly as easy to fire and forget as the Fad is. Then finally, we have the Certus Brace. This one is the easiest choice. The main way that the amps deal damage is through crits. The Certus gives you the most crit. Lauren is semi-competitive with 12% crit chance and status as opposed to the Certus 20% crit, but ultimately, since void damage is a non-DOT status effect, we care much more about crits than we do status. So with all that being said, what amp arcanes should we use? The choice for amp arcanes is pretty straightforward. The most important one by far is Eternal Onslaught. This gives us 180% amp critical chance for 8 seconds whenever our operator drops below 25 energy. The easiest way to do this is with Matarai's Void Strike ability, which immediately depletes your operator's entire energy bar for a massive damage increase to both amps and weapons. This is not to say that it's only useful in Matarai, as any other skill can get its effects through a mix of Void Mode and ability spam and then Void Dashing. The reason why giving us that amount of crit chance matters so much is because it pushes the Cantic and Fad to 151.2 crit chance, meaning that both are guaranteed to score a mix of yellow and orange crits. The second amp arcane is much less important, and you can honestly take a gilded 547 to level cap with just Eternal Onslaught. However, an easy choice for your second amp arcane is Eternal Eradicate. Since we can't mod our amps for base damage, this is completely undiluted on every skill that isn't Matarai. In that case, it's going to be additive to the 30% that you would get from Phoenix Talents. The main reason why we choose this over our other options is that it's easy to proc, as we're also going to have the other benefits up pretty much all the time because of what we need to do to get Onslaught set up. Still, you could also go for any of these other options. Vitreous Strike has 20% chance to give us 80% more critical damage for 4 seconds whenever our amp crits. Vitreous Shadow has a 40% chance to give us 60% crit chance for 12 seconds whenever we score a headshot. Eternal Logistics gives us 72% amp efficiency on Void Sling, allowing us to spam Fad way more often. Still, since none of these really offer us anything that's substantially better than Eradicate, either because they're conditional or don't buff our damage directly, Eradicate is honestly just the easiest choice. So how do we get and craft the 547? Unfortunately, the 547 requires us to be instrument on both the Quills and Vox Solaris, meaning we have to hit rank 4 with both. Thankfully, one part of the grind has been eradicated, no pun intended, as you no longer need to hit rank 5 Fortuna to unlock heists to get the systems that you need to rank up with Little Duck. You can now just buy them directly from her for standing. Now, only rank 5 Vox Solaris requires you to be rank 5 with Solaris United, as you don't need Charisma Toroids until then. So what are the most efficient ways to rank up with both the Quills and the Vox Solaris? For the Quills, you'll need to farm Sentient Cores and Eidolon Shards. There's really no way to get around that, unfortunately, and it's just something that you're gonna have to do. In total, you're gonna need 30 Eidolon Shards to rank up to Instrument with the Quills. The Terrorist, Gunturalist, and Hydralist drop 1, 3, and then 5 shards regardless of whether they're captured or killed. This means that if you can do anything from killing 30 Terralists to doing 4 Tricaps, you'll be sorted. Experienced hunters are able to easily do a solo 4x3 within a single Cetus night, so if you do have any friends who enjoy Eidolons, I'd recommend just asking them to help you out. Eidolons are no longer particularly profitable, so most people who still run them just do so for fun and are usually very open to carrying newer players through them. Vox Solaris needs you to farm either Toroids or Narmer Isoplats. By far the fastest way to get standing with the Vox Solaris is Profit Taker, and if you have a friend or clanmate who's keen on Profit Taker, your best bet will always be to offer yourself up as a credit doubling Chroma to get all of the Toroids that you need. However, assuming you don't know a couple of crackhead vaults or mirages, there's some other ways to get the standing. Normally, the farm toroids, people tell you to get your wanted level up to 4, camp in one of the toroid locations, and kill everything that moves while leaving the beacons untouched. While this works great for the Charisma and Vega toroids that you need to craft your amp parts and rank up with Little Duck, there's actually a faster way to do this for Sola toroids specifically. This farm is very similar to the Cephalon Samara standing farm, where we would load into the Orb Vallis on Steel Path and fast travel to the Temple of Profit, while for Samaras you would then go invisible and scan the enemies. Here we're going to use Necros with energized munitions, a Ripkis with the Amalgam mod equipped, and a Kuvaton core modded for Toxin. We're going to activate Desecrate, kill all of the enemies, gather our toroids, then get into our Arcwing, fly about 500 meters towards this tower. Then once we reach it, we turn around and go back to the enemies who are going to have respawned since we're reloading this part of the map. You want to do this a few times until the enemies stop spawning in, then extract and repeat as necessary. You can also get a huge amount of standing by turning in the Lazulite toroids that you get from killing the Exploiter Orb. The problem with this farm is mainly just that the fight is really boring and you need to have a bunch of diluted Firmia on hand to actually start the fight. You can get this during the Firmia Fractures event by depositing 4 Firmia canisters into a fracture and then defending it, but it's best to do this in a squad so you get 4 diluted Firmia spread across the 4 players rather than just the one that you would get by going in solo. You would then fight the Exploiter Orb for the toroids and then turn them in for 12,000 standing each. The final way to farm Vox Solaris standing is through Narmer bounties on Cetus or Fortuna. These have a chance of rewarding you with Narmer Isoplats, which can be turned in for 2,000 standing each. While this method does let you double dip standing with either Unco or Little Duck, it's not a very efficient way to farm in terms of standing per minute, and you also want to keep your Isoplats to craft the Caliban and their weapons. Why is upgrading your amp even important? The main reason to upgrade your amp is to prep yourself for Warframe's endgame. The combination of Madarai's Void Strike and Yunari's Waybound passive Last Gasp is a really potent way of making sure that you don't full die in missions and you can actually pick yourself up without relying on your teammates in a mode like Netrocell's EDA, ETA, and Archon hunts where there's no way to self-revive. A good amp is also necessary to kill Void Angels and Frax enemies quickly, something very helpful when you're in the Zarman grind or getting into Void Cascade. The 547 amp is a great way to one and done your time of just getting an amp. Just remember to wait a few seconds before you start spamming the fad once you go down to get maximum value out of Yunari's other Waybound passive that grants you increased damage based on how long you've been in Last Gasp for. There are also 2 other amps that you can use, so if for some reason you have a lot of standing with one of the factions but not the other, you can go for the 143 if you've got a lot of standing with the Quills. You can still take that amp to level cap, and if you've got a lot of Vox Solaris standing, you could go for the 577. As well, the Propa isn't nearly as comfortable as, let's say, the Fad. There's no denying that its raw damage can get you out of a lot of sticky situations. A 547 is never going to be as good as a 177 at at killing eidolons. However, whenever it comes to speedrunning those, getting the 177 is far from the most resource and time intensive grind that you've got ahead of you. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this video. If you liked the video, hit like. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe. And if you have any more questions or suggestions, drop them in the comments, hop on my Twitch streams, or join our community over on Discord. Become a member for early access to the next video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.